Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and today I'm with my buddy Jordan Carnduff, and we decided that we would brainstorm a little bit together and invite you in on our private conversation. So Jordan and I are always talking about psychology and neurolinguistic programming and how we map out the world in our mind and all kinds of really cool stuff. And we thought, Jordan asked me the other day some questions about how we form our identity. And I said, well, why don't we grab a microphone or two and have a conversation about it and invite all our mesmerizing listeners in. And so, Jordan, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit. You were telling me a story before. So why don't you go ahead and share it again about you were outside and we finally had a sunny day and you were soaking in some sunshine and you started having some ideas about identity. So go ahead and share that story with everyone.
Yeah. So I gave Tim a ring and I said, Tim, I have this great idea. He goes, well, we got to put a microphone to this. And I was like, all right. And you know just how all of us have those great ideas, whether we're taking a walk or we're in the shower. And I don't know about any of you who are listening, but I know if I get into this work zone so much, I'll consume myself with work. And you know, I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to go out and then soak in the sun. And sometimes it's good to have that break of pattern. Sometimes we should definitely listen to our spouse. Sometimes it's best for us. And we walk out to the patio by the pool, and I'm sitting there, and the first thing I want to think about is like work and do all this. And then I thought about our conversation. So I pull out my notebook and I just start, going into the notebook and I start writing things down about identity. And I wrote down like, well, how is that formed? And just questions about it. And, what does that mean? And I started just thinking, well, if the strongest need in all of us is the need to stay consistent in who we believe we are, then what would happen if we change that belief about who we believe we are? Would that, determine that consistency on where we end up? And that's the spiral of that thought. And I thought it'd be really interesting to chew on that idea a little bit.
Yeah. So what's the first question then?
So I think the first question is, do you believe that the strongest need in all of us is the need to stay consistent in who we believe we are, right? Whether or not we do something or not for a while, but no matter what we try to change or we do our best to change, we still end up at, boom, our identity. Does that make sense?
It does. So the question is there a part of us that's always striving to live up to who we believe we are? And I think that the answer in most cases is yes, but it's totally unconsciously driven, right? So human beings are born with certain temperaments, right? Some people are more solution finders and more optimistic. Some people are more troubleshooters. They're problem solvers. Some people look at the big picture of things. Some people look at the details of things. Some people tend to be more relaxed. Other people tend to be more energized, right? And so we have these types of personalities that you are born into. The rest is all about learning, right? The beliefs that we acquire, we're not born with beliefs, except the belief that we want to survive, right? And so that's just a survival instinct. I don't think that's a belief either. I think that's just a built-in instinct to survive. And so we form our beliefs based on the experiences that we have as our brain makes meaning and connection and linking one thing to something else. In the beginning, our brain is forming symbols. It's not using words or language. It's simply forming symbols. Like if you see your mother's face and then you get fed, that is, safety, right? This symbol of mom is safe, right? When you're being fed. And so eventually, as we continue to grow, then we start to formulate words. And then around the age of 8, we start to really become more conscious. Our ability to think, to analyze, to question things starts to develop a little bit. But they say that by the time we're 8 years old, we have most of our foundational beliefs in place. They call them, cognitive researchers call them schemas or life scripts, right? So we have these life scripts about who I am, who you are, how the world is, whether it's safe or dangerous or a school, or, you know, is life like a university, or is life difficult and cruel, right? Or like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. And so we form these different beliefs. And so I think unconsciously we're always seeking evidence to prove what we already believe. You know, if you are a Democrat this election, you're going to tend to believe whatever you hear on CNN. If you're a Republican, you're probably going to tend to believe whatever you hear on Fox News, right? We tend to seek out the people that we feel we are connected with, or that support the same views that we have. And we're not really tuning in to listen or understand. We're trying to just prove why what we already believe is accurate. And I think that in many ways, our unconscious mind does that for us. In fact, there was a research study that came out a little while ago from the Max Planck Institute for Neuroscience, where they study the brain. And these neuroscientists did this experiment. I don't know if I told you about this or not, Jordan, but they were able to predict using MRIs and brain scans how someone was going to behave, what decision they were going to make 7 full seconds before the person was consciously aware that they were going to make that decision. They could see it on the brain scan. Certain parts of the brain would light up, and they could predict with high accuracy what choice they were going to make before the person would consciously say, I'm deciding to make this choice, right? I'm going to go left or I'm going to go right. Before we consciously were aware of whether we were going to go left or we were going to go right, the brain had already decided for us, based on experience, based on beliefs, based on expectation, based on all the programming that was already there. And so a lot of what we think is in our conscious control, it isn't. You know, our unconscious mind is running patterns, and we have the ability to upgrade those patterns. We have the ability to upgrade how we think. And I think, therefore, we have the ability to upgrade our identity, which I think in a general term is who we think we are.
Right. And to add on to that, I think what you've taught me over the past years is tools and techniques and strategies to gain conscious control of those unconscious processes, which is really, really powerful stuff. And to end what you said about the question of who we believe we are, right? So if identity is the question of who are you, and without a skip, if you ask someone that, right, they normally say, well, I do this, right? They go, you know, well, I'm a programmer, you know, I'm a tech CEO, I'm this. If you took away what someone did, what your parents do, where you live, and the activities of what you do, right, that question becomes extremely difficult for some people, right? And I wonder why. So it's like, if the question of identity is of who are you, right? Then why is that question so difficult to answer?
Yeah, I love how you just framed that, right? The idea of, if you take away how people tend to describe themselves, because we do identify ourselves by what we do, you know, by the actions that we take. But if you strip that away, then, you know, then it's, what are your morals? What are your values? What are your ethics? Right? How do you approach the day? Right? How do you treat others? How do you treat yourself? Do you believe that you can accomplish whatever you want, or do you believe that that's a lie? What people say, that to fool themselves into false happiness, right? There's a lot of things that and I think that's why it becomes so challenging, because, you know, we live in a culture that before coronavirus was moving so fast that people didn't stop to think about stuff like that. That's deep level thinking. You know, we would talk about meditation, but most people don't do it. We talk about being more mindful, but most people aren't mindful. We talk about emotional intelligence, but most people don't know what that is or what to do with it. And so, because we haven't placed a huge amount of importance on it, like other cultures have. And so
Right.
I think that's why the Dalai Lama is so popular, because, you got, well, you got the Dalai Lama, who speaks real powerful truths. And then you got Pastor Joel Osteen, who is just, a brilliant motivational speaker with God on his side. He just tells you everything you have ever wanted to hear, and then says, God, that's going to make that happen for you. Just believe. Right. And so, and people love it because it makes them feel really good. It makes them feel really good inside. So,
Right.
Because we don't know how to make ourselves feel good in most cases.
It's very true. I agree.
And so if you want to know what your identity is, another question is, why do you want to know? How would knowing that answer improve your life, elevate your happiness, elevate your inner security and peace of mind? And I think maybe the answer to that would simply be because it gives you the ability to start getting clear on what would make you feel happy and peaceful inside, and then developing your identity around that.
I agree.
Right. So is it that, you have your identity, and then based on your identity, you have to shape your life? Or can you decide that this is what you want your life to look like, and then form your identity around that?
And that's what most people do, right? They get that job. They say, now I am this, right? They're single, into a relationship. They say, I am in a relationship. Their behaviors change, because if you did the same behaviors as, you were single in a relationship, you wouldn't have that relationship for too long. So I think it's a double-sided, double-edged sword. I think there's two sides of the coin to it. Because if we say this whole time, it's just your identity, well, your identity is very malleable. It's very flexible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has like a definition. But the amount of times that I've heard people at my age, which scares me, and people even younger, they go, I don't know who I am. And then I hear someone, who's their parent, or someone who's in their 50s or older, and they go, well, good luck trying to find that answer, because that answer doesn't come, which scares me. If I'm honest, I say it scares me in the sense of, because I've heard people justify not taking action on where they want to go, or not taking action. They justify their behavior by saying, well, I don't know who I am. Because I think it is an important thing to begin to tackle and begin to uncover and brush off, because if you don't know where you would fit later in life, right? If it makes sense for you, does it match who you are when you're born? Like you were talking about how, your life script. If your life script is somehow there's a little kink in there, and somehow you become an entrepreneurial spirit, you're an entrepreneur spirit, and someone tries to stick you in a corporate job, that doesn't fit, right? That might inflict and cause, some inner war battle that is kind of hard to solve, right? In that environment. So I think it helps with placement and at least direction, because if you don't know who you are, then how do you know where to go? And if you don't know where to go, then you have, very impotent goals, right? That only get you day by day.
Yeah. I think that's great. I've heard that question a lot as well. And I tend to answer by saying it's the wrong question to ask. It doesn't matter who you are or who you think you're supposed to be. The question is, who do you want to be? Right? Who do you want to grow into being? And then you start moving in that direction. Right? And so, there was an old model of success, and it was do, have, be, right? Do stuff, then you have stuff, then you can be the person that you want to be, right? So if you work really hard and you save up a whole bunch of money, you can have a nice car, a nice house, nice relationship, money in the bank, and then you will finally be successful and be happy. Well, a lot of people found that they worked their tail off. They got a bunch of stuff and they still weren't happy, or it just created other problems, or they sacrificed the stuff that ended up mattering most to get the superficial stuff like money. And so then the model changed. The model became be, then have, then do. It really got turned upside down. Decide who is it that you want to be. And that's our identity question today. Who do you want to be? Not who do you think you are? And even with a certain temperament, if you like structure and certainty and you want that office job and you like knowing exactly what's going to happen every day because that's your basic temperament, then that's great. If you're an entrepreneur who loves variety and loves shiny things every 5 minutes, then that's great, right? So you have that basic temperament, but within there, there's a whole bunch of beliefs about why we need the variety, why we need the distraction, why we want the security. So we got to take a look at that. But you decide that I'm going to live from my values, my moral compass, from what matters most to me. I'm going to identify the feelings that I want to feel most often. And then I'm going to figure out, all right, if I can focus on that, then I'll generate these feelings now. I won't have to wait 10 or 20 years until I have a certain number of money in the bank, or until I married the right person, or until I have the kids, or until I've traveled the world. I don't have to do all that stuff. I can feel those feelings that I want: significance, connection, love, security, variety, contribution, personal power. I can feel all of that right now. And then if I'm clear on who I am and how I want to feel, then that dictates what I do. That helps me figure out what I do. So that becomes your moral compass, because if you have a compass in your pocket and you're lost in the woods and you're just walking in all kinds of directions, you're doing a lot of stuff, but you might just be going in circles or getting more lost, right? You got to get out that compass, and that will direct you.
I love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
So I think it's corny, but it's true. The phrase of, we're not human doings, we're human beings, right? So becoming or just being that person. And I think it's so simple that humans think we're so complex, right? And that it has to be hard, and it has to be, all this complexity has to happen in order for us to change. In reality, what really changes someone is that little thing inside their head.
Yeah.
Right? Little bitty shift that, you make a bad memory that now used to have someone convulse and now seems silly to them, that they laugh at it. That's a different quality of life. And that change, it wasn't intricate or crazy by anything, but it was a crazy amount of change for that human being when, they saw something differently. They felt something differently. So here's something that's, I love how you took that and you showed them like a pathway for it. So if we take identity and we unbox it, and all it is these values and beliefs, and these beliefs on who we are or who we want to be, right? And I think it's super easy, because all a belief is a belief that you is just an idea, right? It's an idea that you've bought into. And ideas, you can change your ideas and thoughts just like you change socks. So if you can just change on where you want to go, right? And change that little moral compass on, okay, well, I definitely want to head north. And okay, that fits for me. That would work for me. Right? And it matches all your internal values, which you would uncover yourself. Then it's not even a question of now who am I? It's I know who I will be. And I think that's more powerful, because if you also, on top of that though, I think a lot of personal growth we hear about, get to your goals, find these things that are in front of you. And we get so juiced up and so invigorated. And then, we get juiced up and fired up. I remember being on a phone call with you years ago, and it sounded like you were almost, how do I explain it? It was more of like a tough love moment. It said, okay, do it. And I was like, well, that's not what I was asking Like, okay. And I remember sitting down at my desk at my house at the time, and I wrote down on a piece of paper, and I wrote down pain of staying where I was and pleasure of where I was going, right? And the pain side was huge, right? It was like I blew it out of the water, because I remember you said something about associating pain to where you are and pleasure to where you want to go, or you will stay where you're at forever. And that scared me. I went like, I don't want to stay where I'm at. Like that's terrifying. And I remember writing it down. And I got it wasn't, because what I did before that was people get into personal growth and they think positive thoughts, these positive affirmations. They tell themselves all this stuff. And then deep down, they might feel like even they're lying to themselves, or it's a facade somehow. And then they fall off, right? I told myself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'll get really excited. And then I would never take action. And I didn't know why. I was like, well, there's something wrong with me. Maybe there's something back here that I have to fix, because in personal growth, we're told, oh, it's this thing way back here that you got to handle before you can ever move forward, right? You're all screwed up like this way. So, let's untether this wire until you get from where you are to where you want to be in this straight line. But that's not how life is. Life is not this straight line. It's this beautiful windy road that you get to look out and enjoy the view as you go down it, right? And through it. And I didn't understand that. So people try to focus in and just get pulled by their mission and their goals. What's really important is that's only 50% of your juice and your rocket fuel that's actually going to launch you. Right? It might be enough for some people, but also what's really important on there is there's two twin driving forces that cause any amount of movement or change for anybody, as you know, right? It's pain and pleasure. So if we're just using the pleasure part to move us forward, we also want to know, who do we not want to be, right? What's painful for us on who do we not want to be? That will show us a very, very clear path. Okay, I don't want to be this mother, this father, right? I don't want to be that type of spouse. I don't want to be that person who does, goes out and does hellacious things, right? Those are basics. But who do you not want to be when you're under stress with your family, right? What if, for example, right, I'm not an angel by any means. If I'm under a lot of stress, I will find myself, getting snippy. And then I saw that, and by using the tools that you taught me, I went, oh. So then under a lot of stress, I wasn't thinking about it. My spouse came in and she goes, hey, and normally I'd go, can you just give me a second? But I went, yes. And the behavior changed, right? Because I was crystal clear on what I would never tolerate ever again on who I was. If I did that and I kept on doing that, then that would surely end up, me 10 years from now, I'll surely arrive if nothing crazy happens in my life, right? But the question is where and who I will be then. So I have to constantly check, right? If I constantly check, okay, now I definitely know what I don't want, right? I've had good role models in my life of what I don't want to be like. Okay, that's what I don't want to be like. Who do I want to be like? And just keep on moving that needle forward and forward. I think people are looking for this answer for this end result. Like, oh, if I do X, Y, Z, if I find out about identity, if I find out about this trick, this tool, this thing, it's going to give me that feeling of completion, of accomplishment. But that's just not how it is, if we're being brutally honest, right? But this progression of personal growth is that journey, that winding road. It's never that just straight line. It can feel like a straight line, which can still be fun and fast, while enjoying at the same time. I think I went on a tangent, but I think I might have got some things in there.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, I liked it. So let's unpack this a little bit. Okay, so one of the things you said in the very beginning was that a lot of times we take small actions and people think that that's no big deal, but a big goal is just a series of smaller goals achieved, right? So 1,000-mile journey starts with the single first step, and then another, and then another. If you don't think that small things are a big deal, take a tiny pebble and put it in your shoe. After a little while, that tiny pebble is going to feel like, oh my gosh, my foot's going to fall off. I think that one of the biggest sabotages that that people commit is not appreciating the small accomplishments. Whatever you give attention to, you get more of. And I think that giving attention to the small accomplishments will create more momentum, more natural motivation, and keep you focused. One of the things people complain about all the time is a lack of focus, motivation, and confidence. Well, that's because we tend to focus on all the things that aren't going well or what hasn't happened instead of focusing on, well, what I did, what was a win today. Whenever I start a coaching session, I always start off with the same two questions. What's going well? And then what do you want to improve on today? And we set our intention for the day. But I always start with what's going well, even if it was only one thing, because it trains people to focus on what they have done, what they were able to accomplish, what they did take action on, and then we celebrate that, right? And it turns out that people usually are doing a lot better than they give themselves credit for. That itself gives them momentum to keep going forward. So, yeah. The second thing that I thought was really, really good was that, well, let me bring this up too, because the voice in my head keeps nagging me at it. I heard you say something, which was a really great quote. We're not human. Wayne Dyer used to say that all the time. We're not human doings, we're human beings. And you prefaced it by saying, I know it sounds corny, but it's not corny. It's powerful. But I've said that too. What people do when they say something really profound is we subconsciously don't want others to think that we're weird, or we don't want them to judge us. So we preface it by saying, I know this is going to sound silly or corny or dumb. And then we speak real wisdom. And that was just a simple example of how our beliefs affect us in so many ways, and we don't even realize it's happening, right? And in fact, you can't really discover who you really are without having somebody to have the conversation with. I don't think you'll be able to do it on your own. I want to know what you believe about that, but I think you have to have a coach, a mentor, somebody to be able to feed back to you your stuff. My friend Joe Vitale calls it mirror work, right? He says you got to look in the mirror, and do the mirror work, the inner work, and it's very difficult to do that with yourself. You need somebody else in a loving, non-judgmental way to be able to hold up that mirror to you and say, do you realize what that belief was that you just said? Do you realize what you just told me? And people are like, oh, wow, no, I didn't even know I was saying it that way. So What do you think about someone being able to really figure out who they are without help?
When I was just getting into this, my mentors were books, right? My mentors were these books. And I'll tell you what, that is the most challenging time, because I'm going through this stuff. I'm learning from people in a company when I was so young, in a multi-level marketing company, and I'm getting all these like different ideas and shifts, and then years later, I figured, okay, I'm definitely gonna make it somewhere. But nothing changed. I was the same human being. I had there's different thoughts for sure. Positivity can get you really, really far, right? Developing a winning mindset and things of that sort. But there's still so many things that it is just going to be an excruciatingly long journey. By you giving that small little shift, right? Of you just saying, for example, as everybody just heard, of that little piece of maybe you were of saying, oh, it's corny, but it's true. Right? That is if we unpack that and open that up, that little bitty piece says either, you heard that somehow and you said you heard it from someone who you value, which I definitely did. I think I heard it from, I don't even know who I heard it from, but I could replay the voice in my head of someone saying it. But that still shows, hey, maybe you could have been more open and saying, I heard this thing one time and I thought it was awesome, if you really believed it. Right? And that little shift down the road, this little bitty shift now, it's like if you shot a gun, if you were shooting a gun and imagine the trajectory of a bullet, a two little centimeter shift like that, right? Just above or below, or to the right or to the left, that's going to miss a mile shot, right? That's going to be yards upon yards across, right? Down the road. So that little shift and becoming just aware of it and also beginning to work on that, right? 5 years from now, you will not even begin to believe the power of having a coach or a mentor, because you won't even know sometimes the power of it when you're in it. I heard a great quote from you that said, you can't see the label when you're inside the bottle.
And I heard that from a coach, from my coach.
So that's so powerful, because if I didn't know, right? If I didn't have other people around me to consistently check me, hey, by the way, do this. There's no way I could do this on my own. There's no way at 22 years old now that I could do what I do, right? I so much more for me to do, but I wouldn't be where I'm at without a coach, without having mentors. I got obsessed, right? I got obsessed with finding mentors. I went out, knocked on a huge door, right? The biggest house near me for 150 miles, knocked on their door and I said, hey, I don't have what you have, teach me. Clearly I didn't get to meet with him. I got stopped by the gardener and I said, hey, look, like, I can't tell you who it is, what they do. You can write a letter. I said, well, cool, I got a notebook right here. And I slapped it right there, wrote a little note. And I said, can you put it in this house? And he goes, I can do that. I said, perfect. A month later, I get a text, hey, this is so-and-so from that house on 159. It's hit or miss. You can reach me. Give me a call. Okay, cool. Gave him a call immediately, right? And then invited me to his company, showed me around, stuff like that. And then I was with my girlfriend at Valparaiso. She left with friends, right? She goes, hey, I'm going to go to Michigan. Cool with you? Yeah, that's fine. I'm in Valpo at the time, Valparaiso, Indiana. And I was like, sure. So I was like, well, my identity at the time is, well, hey, let's make this fun. So I went out, I met friends that day. I walked around, met some friends, we got some food. And they said, oh, hey, yeah, there's a TED Talk at Valpo. I went, what? There's a TED Talk? No way. I'm like, let's go. And I sneak into this TED Talk. And during intermission, this guy comes out and he starts talking in a way. I'm like, it sounds like a magician. I used to do magic. All right, I'll listen. And then he said something about hypnosis. And I lost my mind. The friends around me said, like, you lit up like a Christmas tree. Like, I've never seen someone get so poised and look over like a dog, like caught something. Like, huh? It was you. And by those little bitty things, those taking actions of finding mentors and finding people who can check you, it's the most important thing in my life. I think that is wildly important. It's going to be hard for someone to find that without that. But coaches are very easy to find, especially good ones. There's two of them as you're listening.
That's
one with more experience than the other.
That's right. Insert us. Yeah, that was a pretty amazing day, that TED Talk. So it was interesting because I was selected to give the actual program, and then they asked two of all the speakers to go out into the lobby and do like an intermission small presentation that was very highly interactive, to keep everybody engaged in between, during our break. And so they asked me to do one of those. And then that's how we were able to meet, right, and interact and have been friends ever since. So yeah, you're exactly right. A small little shift can take you in a direction that is completely different from where you would have ended up on your own. And coaching just gets you there so much faster. All the success that I've had, are because of the coaches in my life and my wife. and so, those are the big breakthroughs. I never thought of myself as being very smart, but I worked really, really hard. And, now I am smart. That's my identity, right? I've earned it and learned and earned. And so, but there was a time, coaches aren't always the people that hire you. Sometimes coaches are the people that are a critic or that just bust you out one day. I remember I had keynoted at a seminar and I was outside shaking hands and meeting and greeting people, which probably, I don't know if that'll happen again in the new normal moving forward. I doubt I would go out and shake, the hands of 100 people right now. I'd probably just go do my keynote and leave, or have to wear a mask and gloves. I don't know how that's going to work out, but
hazmat suit.
We'll work it out. Yeah, we'll work it out. So a lot of bowing. We're going to do the Japanese, a lot of bowing. So a lot of Japanese style, I should say. But we would, but I remember I was talking, there was a group of 3 or 4 guys that were around me, and we were talking about something. And I made the comment, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. So, take this with a grain of salt. And I was just making a little comment to, I don't know, to crack a joke or whatever, or to kind of take myself down a little bit, because I was on the stage, and so I just wanted to come across very humble. And so I was ripping on myself a little bit. And one of the guys there, he says, "You need to knock that off." He got really right and like caught me off guard. He says, "I've heard you say that a couple of other times, that you're not that smart, and you're one of the smartest people here, and you need to knock that off." And I'm like, damn. Wow. I'm like, wow, that was, I was like taken aback and appreciative all in real time. With this mindfulness stuff, you're aware of what's happening in the present because you're analyzing everything. It's called, what's it called? Metacognition. You're aware that you're aware of your thinking. Right? That's what mindfulness is. You are fully aware in the moment of what you're thinking and what's happening in the moment. And if you're paying attention all the time, Chris Widener likes to say, you have to take all of your thoughts captive. You have to take all of your thoughts captive. You have to be paying attention to every thought you have and make sure, am I going to use this or am I going to throw it away? And so that one, I used it. I grabbed it right away, and I'm like, that is awesome. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. And he says, you're welcome. It was very cool. And that happened years ago. Right. And so, when I said I'm smart now, I was thinking of that story. Right. And so your coaches can be people who are people you don't like, can sometimes really give you honest, direct feedback. You got to make sure that you're taking the stuff that's good, because it might be wrapped in stuff that isn't. But sometimes, your biggest critics will be people that'll also be very honest with you. And you can learn that way as well. There is one more thing I wanted to talk about real quick. And that is, I thought that was brilliant what you said, Jordan, about identifying who you do not want to be. That is very powerful. And I think that actually would probably be a lot easier for people when you're trying to figure out your identity and the person that you want to become. You can also do it by what you don't want, because that's how most people think. Most people are thinking about what they don't want, what they don't like, what they don't have, what they're frustrated about. And if you were able to write that down and say, I don't want to be broke anymore. Okay, well then what do you want to be? That means, well, I want to be abundant. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean $500 a month? Does that mean $500 after all your bills are paid? Does that mean $1,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month? You don't have to be a millionaire to have a really amazing lifestyle. And a lot of times people have it in their head, oh, I got to make all this extra money. Not really. A couple extra $1,000 after your bills are paid every month is awesome. You can do a lot of stuff with that, right? And so it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. In fact, I know so many people from being a business coach where they are running $1 million business, but their take-home pay is only like, 90 grand. It's because so much of it is going out into everything else. So it sounds exciting, having it. And there's nothing wrong with having it. I mean, I have lots of friends that I'm hanging out with that are millionaires and multimillionaires, and there's nothing wrong with that either, right? So we just want to make sure that we have these ideas in our mind about what we want, what we don't want, and it helps us gain more clarity. So I thought that was really good. I wanted to give you a shout out on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I learned from the best.
Yeah, well, you'll have to introduce him to me. It's probably a her. So I've learned the most from my wife, and is challenging and difficult in most times because I was being stubborn or arrogant. But you had made a comment that, you should listen to your spouse. And I think that there's tremendous value in that. And a lot of times we don't want to listen to our spouse because of our ego, because of our desire to be right, or because of whatever reason, right? Whatever the reason is. And it doesn't mean that our spouse is right all the time, but, your spouse is usually someone who knows you intimately and has been with you for a long time, and often will know you better than you know yourself. So that can be real value. So moving forward, you also said, that's why I love having conversations with you, because there's always so many good ideas that come out of you. But you said that one of the things that you observed is that we have to have a plan with this. I always like to have some kind of a plan, so it's not just intellectual funfair. We actually are having ideas and then let's do something with it, right? Because wisdom without action isn't wisdom, it's knowledge, right? But knowledge with action, that's wisdom. And so, so I recommend everybody that's watching this or listening to this conversation with Jordan and I, that you get out a piece of paper and you write down, the qualities of what kind of person you want to be, how you want to be remembered, what is most important to you, what do you feel your ethics and values today, or what you would like them to be. And then what you don't want, what you don't like, how you don't want to, when you're stressed out, how do you show up, and how would you rather show up? Right? You could show up, instead of scared, you can show up playful. And then once you start to get that done, then start to pretend that you're already this way. This isn't who I'm going to become. This is who I decide to be right now. This is who I am today. And then you work on living up to it. And you might falter and you might mess up, but try anyway. Keep doing it anyway. Because the thing that I've learned, so Jordan, you're just turned 22. I just turned 50. So we're on different spectrums. And yet we love the same things. We're talking about the same things, right? So age is just a number. People who are on this side of the spectrum like to say that a lot more. But age is, but truly, what I've learned is that instead of trying to track down these goals, the goals should be to love the day, enjoy the day, right? Because goals are there to help you learn and grow and help you become more clear as to who you really want to be. They help to stretch you. They help you to become more enriched in this identity that you have of yourself. But they can also, like you've said, be all consuming, and they can take over, and they can cause you to sacrifice the wrong things. And you could end up, like you said, on that trajectory, ending up somewhere else that you did not intend to be, because you thought that's what was necessary for you to be that happy person, right? And almost always what I'm talking about is money. People are always, chasing that money more than anything else, and they will sacrifice just about everything else to get it, and then you have it, and then it's like, now what? Or you make all that money, you've ruined your relationships, now you have to give most of it away, to your spouse, or you die. Now you just worked your tail off, didn't enjoy life, so that somebody else who didn't earn that money gets it now, right? So
Exactly.
You spend so much more time pursuing your goals. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what every person deserves, and that's what we talk about in America, right? That's why people love America, because it's the pursuit of life, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so that means you can live in any way that you want, as long as it's not hurting other people. So, but you're going to be in the pursuit of the things that you want much more. You're going to be climbing that mountain a lot longer than standing at the top, planting a flag, popping, champagne and taking pictures. And so,
Right.
and then when you get down the mountain, you're just going to want to climb another mountain. So, making sure that you're enjoying what you're doing. I watched a movie yesterday. It's called Greater. It was about a football player. This kid that was a walk-on that ended up becoming an all American player. And he just worked harder than anybody, and he kept finding coaches, and he kept believing in himself and being structured. And I hope I'm not going to spoil it for everybody, but I'm going to anyway. And then he died at 22. He was a walk-on, and then became an All-American in college, which was extraordinary, in Arkansas. And then ended up getting drafted, like I think number 3 draft pick for the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, wow.
And then 3 days before signing, he got into a car accident and died.
Wow.
And they got this Burlsbro or something, I think was his last name, this Burlsbro award that they now use. And I didn't know any of this stuff. And I live in Indianapolis. And I was like, oh my gosh. Right. So he worked his tail off and he did all these things, but he lived right. So those 22 years was worth it, and so Kobe Bryant, passed away, but he did a lot of good things and people loved him. Right. And so it's not how much time we have, it's what we do with the time that we have. And I think that's what identity is really about.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Because most people think about it. I mean, we've seen that, right? And it doesn't matter, like, the success is unique and different to one another. Nobody really cares about the million in the bank account. I know when I first started, I was like, that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to have millions. I'm going to be famous. This is all I want. And that's not what I really wanted. I remember when our first conversation ever, I was at Valpo. I called you up on the phone because I wanted to bug the hell out of you until you said, yes, I'll teach you. And our first conversation, and you said, yeah, well, you know what? I'll help you. And it's like, it's not like I forced you or anything. You were very willing. And, but I remember you're like, yeah, well, we can make you like the next Tony Robbins. And my response was, I don't want to do that. I want to be the next me. And you paused and you went, that took me years to figure out. And I remember that at least signifying to me that, okay, well, at least I think I might be on the right track. And I mean, it's almost as if very, very metaphysical or spiritual almost. It's like when you let go of those things about chasing money, it tends to come more. I remember hearing you say, I called you, I was confused or something. I'm like, I mean, what do you think I should do? And you go, if you chase 2 rabbits, how many of them do you catch? And I went, none. He goes, exactly. He goes, focus on one. And he goes, and quit trying to chase it. I said, then how do I catch it? He goes, well, if you chase something, what does it tend to do? I said, run away. He goes, exactly. And I'm like, he's right. Like, how do I do it? But that's so true. It's like, if you find your own passion, if you just set these little things that we've talked about all in place, then you can actually, you don't have to go find happiness anywhere. You can't walk outside, go pour a bucket of happiness. People say, I have to go find it, like it's a treasure, right? And they use that metaphor in the sense of, they're the end goal, but there's no such thing as a bucket of happiness unless it's a bottle of whiskey. I'm kidding.
I don't know. I've went to the bottom of a bottle of whiskey before. I didn't find happiness there.
Nope. But it's, yeah, I actually don't drink. I don't drink or anything. And I get a really funny look because I'm 22 and they're like, oh, you should be definitely there. I'm like, nope, don't want to. But my point of that is I have friends. One of my friends, Zach, I won't say his last name. He owns a huge company when it comes to furniture. They liquidate other stores and other things like that. I walked into this place looking for something, and I saw this guy sitting on one of the chairs, and I started talking with him. And I chat back and forth, and turns out that he was the owner. And I started helping him with some relationship stuff. And I did some few techniques and whatnot. He literally pulls out his wallet, hands me some money. I'm like, no, I don't want that. No, keep it. He goes, no, take it. It's like, all right, fine. So I did, and him and I became friends. And I remember driving back to my apartment at the time, going, why would that guy who's so successful, right, who's driving a crazy car like my dream car that's parked outside, why would he ask me for, how to get emotions right? And this continued our relationship. And I remember it clicking in my head going, he has everything that he wants. But his sum total of his life right now is pissed off, frustrated, sad, angry. But he is brutally wealthy. And I wouldn't say wealthy. I would say rich. Because if you're wealthy, you are happy, right? But you're rich in all areas. That's what I think wealthy is. He was monetarily rich, but he wasn't rich emotionally, spiritually, in his relationships, anything. And I think that was a really, really cool sticking point to me, because you wouldn't take fitness advice from someone who's overweight, right? Or financial advice from someone who has never had it. Mm-hmm. And I remember that just sticking with me really, really well. So it's almost as if you put on that hat of, this is who I want to be, and you kind of almost pretend, and you step into that character next time you wake up. And like when you step into that character and you just kind of pretend throughout the day, like it's not like you have to do all this work. You have to find out these people. You have to go out and like dedicate years or days and all this time to figuring out who you want to be. You can just test it. And then if you like that day, keep on doing it. I think we lose sight as we grow up and we think things have to be complex. I mean, as a child, if you do something and it works, you keep on doing it, right? Mm-hmm. If you want ice cream and then someone says no, and then you cry and you get ice cream, then what are you going to do? You're going to cry more often. They just do what works. I'm not saying cry for ice cream, but I'm saying do things that work. And if making you feel better, it's just acting as if, soon enough, if you go to the gym and if you act as if you know what you're doing, right, and you're working out, sooner or later you're going to develop biceps. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a super powerful way to actually get to where you want to go.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that's really good. I think that, you summed it up there, where you just do the things that make you happy, right? And reach out and connect. And a big part of it is connecting with others, right? Relationships with others. That is where it always seems like if you have a big celebration, you want to share it with someone, right? If you have something really exciting happen, you want to share it with someone. It's that shared experience with another human being that is so, that takes it to the next level. And, I think that the wealthiest and the happiest people that I know have great relationships with people. They have great relationships with family and friends and people that they work with. They just have really people that will challenge them, hold them to a higher standard. That's what where the most riches come from. Not the stuff that you have, but the people that you spend that time with. So that you can have all the food in the world, but if you don't have someone to enjoy it with you, it's not the same. As a keynote speaker, I've traveled around the country and spent a lot of time by myself in a really fancy restaurant, and it's no fun. It's just not fun. I was in Reno doing a keynote, the last one, I think. And I didn't know anybody there. And I went into a casino and, oh no, this was at, that wasn't at Reno. This was at the one in Detroit, Michigan. I can't remember. It was their big fancy casino there, and I didn't know anybody. And so I was sitting in this fancy hotel and this fancy buffet and by myself. And I always get so lonely, right? So if you were there or someone that I knew, like, so that night I, met some people and went to dinner at the top floor of that casino and looked out over Detroit and hung out with these 4 people. And they were all strangers. I didn't know them at all, but we were friends by the end of it. Right. We just hung out And it was so much fun because of that connection. I think one of the things that people struggle with right now, and this might be a topic for another podcast, but what happens if you're in this coronavirus and you're by yourself?
Right.
You know, how do you create that connection then? And so I think that part of the answer to that, it comes in your identity, right? That might be, I'm going to reaching out and connecting with people. I'm going to find a way to create a, I heard somebody from the Netherlands call it a social bubble.
Yeah.
Where you agree to hang out with other people that aren't showing any symptoms, just so you have some physical contact. And then you guys agree to the guidelines. You're going to wear masks when you go out. You're going to wash your hands. You're going to stay away from everybody else. But you and these other people are going to socialize and hang out more so that you have that physical connection. And I think that's probably going to happen more and more because we can't be so isolated. I've got, 3 other people in this house, and there's always something going on with a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old, and my 21-year-old wife. Not 21, but I'm going to say her age on anything that's being recorded. She's 21. So she's been 21 a couple of times.
Right.
But anyway, so any final thoughts on this? We'll go ahead and wrap this up this episode, and we'll do it again. But any other final thoughts you might have on identity, Jordan?
I think step one is just, really figure out, who do you not want to be? That's gonna give you that mental RAM, and all those questions begin to turn down inside when you find that out.
Yeah, that's really good.
So simple. Step one, right, of that is the part A of that is just, who do you want to be? What would make you happy? And then step 2, act as if, test that day out. And then it's just a continuous test of step 3 of repeat both step 1 and step 2. Just rinse and repeat. And if you do that over time, you won't be the person in the rocking chair sitting back and forth going, man, I wish I would have done that differently. Man, that would be the most disheartening thing to ever end up there. I've seen people like that, and it's heart-wrenching. My ex-girlfriend used to come back from work, seeing and helping elderly people pass from the nursing home, and she would see this, and it hurt her heart so much that she began to transform her life. She would get back, she goes, how do I do this? I'm like, I don't have to guide you. You know exactly what to do. And she started working out. She started just living as much as she possibly could in a very extremely healthy way, because she never wanted to have that regret of not becoming the person who she values. Become the own if you value other people, figure out why you value them and then become that person, because who you're becoming is just a version of you. Mm-hmm. It's not actually a different human being. It's just you. That's what I would say to wrap up.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember where I saw it, but it was a very scary post, and it had a picture of a ladder on a wall, and it said, you don't want to spend your whole life climbing this ladder to realize that it was leaned up against the wrong wall. It's like, oh my gosh, I climbed for so long and I don't even want to be where I ended up. So yeah, I love that. I love the steps, clarifying and then trying it out. When people would ask me, I don't know what to do, I'm like, well, then write down 5 different things and then go try them. Go try different things, because there's no way you're going to be able to figure it out without having some experiences. You just got to go try something. And then it's like your big breakthrough is behind door number 5, but you've got to get through door number 1, 2, 3, and 4 before you get to 5. Everybody wants to find the magic door number 1, open it up, and arrive. And sometimes that happens, but 99% of the time, that's not what happens. 99% of the time, you got to go through a door, And you can only get door number 2 to open when you go through door number 1. And you don't want to go through door number 1. You're not even interested in door number 1. I know, but you got to go through door number 1 because the person that you're going to meet there is going to unlock the idea for door number 2. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or you go through door number 1 and you realize this is not what I want. I didn't like that at all. Awesome. Now you know. If you start off with 5 ideas, now you know that one of them is not good at all. Now you got 4 more. Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what allows anybody to create momentum. And so we've got to make sure that we're following those steps that you gave, and then just keep trying. And then the inspiration and the clues will find you. So Jordan Carnduff, outstanding, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is so good. So thanks so much. And hey, everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with Jordan and I today. I hope that you got some golden nuggets from this. I hope that we have brightened your day or inspired you enough to go home or to wherever you are, wherever you're listening, and to do something kind and caring and fun for yourself. Do something kind, caring, and fun for those around you. And get clear on what it is that really brings you the most joy, so that you can start developing this identity and living it fully today. And when you do that, you are going to end up mesmerizing. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.